And we are back with another episode of the Hockey Princess podcast. I am your host, the Hockey Princess. Guys, we're live once again because we haven't done this in a minute. And it's fun. It's fun for me. I don't know if it's fun for you, Krusty.
Well, not completely. We've struggled today. We've struggled. It's a little rainy, a little cold. There was a whole back and forth on whether I sit in the garage and have a cigar or whether I sit here. And I figured since we were live, I am now here. And now I am wishing I had a cigar. These are what they call first world problems, kiddo.
Definitely. Just as a reminder, folks.
Oh, I want to put my microphone in the picture then just for a second.
Too.
Hey, look at mine. Yeah. Oh, okay. Sorry.
Just as a reminder, folks, make sure to hit that like and subscribe on either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube, however you watch or listen to us ramble on a weekly basis. If you have any questions while we're live, please comment. We have a lot of questions that you guys have already sent earlier this week, but we're happy to answer more. Anything that isn't us covering the team that we're supposed to be covering. Also, if you are going to a game for the remainder of this homestand, please do not get up all the pucks and play and wait for the whistle. The bad food will be there, the beer will be there, and the bathrooms will still be there. If you're looking for good food and you're going to a Blackhawk game this season or even next season, because they'll still be there, highly recommend Su Taqueria El Rey del Taco over on Ogden, just a couple of blocks away from the United Center. Excellent food. Everyone's lovely, and it's better than paying an ungodly United Center price for food.
Yeah, it's very yummy. If somebody's watching this, where do they type in questions? How do we see this? Are you only able to see it?
I am able to see it.
Krusty is very confused. Just letting you, I'm sure everybody already knows that. So, all right, let's just carry on.
All right, let's get into it.
What are we getting into?
Oh. NHL world, we really don't have a ton. It was announced that the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Nashville Predators are doing a global series next year in Sweden, November 14th and November 16th, so just a month into the regular season. A lot of people think this is silly. A lot of people like it. I think it makes sense for Nashville just because they do have a couple of prominent Swedish players, so I think it's a good opportunity for them. For Pittsburgh, I'm not entirely sure, but it's also Sid the Kid on an international platform, and, that makes Bettman more money.
What about Carlson? Erik Karlsson. Isn't he Swedish?
I forget that he's on Pittsburgh in my mind. The man never left
Iowa. But he's a bigwig there in Sweden, so I'm sure that's helpful too. And at some point in time, we're going to be talking about the last time to see Sid, so probably won't be next year. I would assume he goes at least another 2. He hasn't slowed down much.
We also have with the man who is on the record chase. The record continues. We are now in single digits. There is also the rumoring that he will not Alexander Ovechkin will not have a contract extension with the Washington Capitals. This could be the final contract that he has with Washington. I've definitely heard the same rumors and rumblings. There were talk of him before that he does want to at least have a couple of years to go back and play in Russia while he's still able to play. That's very important with him, is to finish in the KHL. So I'm not surprised by this news. But at the same time, part of me never thought there would be a day where I wasn't watching Alexander Ovechkin.
Is his contract up at the end of this year or next year?
Next year.
Oh.
So maybe maybe depending on the position that the Washington Capitals are in. I mean, if you're continuing to run it, it would make sense if you add like a 1 to 2 year extension, if you're, if the momentum is there. If not, end on a high note, break the record, and go home.
Yeah. We'll see what he does. I mean, first he'll take care of the record this year and then see how Washington does in the playoffs. So, again, they're a big surprise this year.
Should be very interesting. Another thing for the playoffs, it is expected that Miro Heiskanen misses the entire first round. Thank you, Mark Stone. Very sad for Dallas, but it's gonna hurt Dallas, but I don't think it's gonna hurt Dallas a ton. I think Dallas is still going to be Dallas in the postseason, or at least that's what I hope. I like them. I wish them well.
Yeah, it might not hurt, except for the fact of who they have to play in the first round. It's going to hurt, and they're gonna play against Colorado, so they're gonna have one of the hardest matchups in the first round. That's a tall ask. All chips in on the Mikko Rantanen to see if he can't put a team on his back a little bit, or was he just McKinnon's running mate?
Makes sense.
That's your storyline. But yeah, that's a tough team to play in the first round, that's for sure.
And speaking of Colorado,
yes,
we've got a Gabriel Landeskog is skating. Probably won't do anything, could do things, we don't know. But I like to report on whenever the man's skating just because I'm a fan of his.
Yeah, I've got to figure that means there's no way in hell he comes back for the playoffs. It's just he hasn't played in 2 years.
We don't know. Weirder things have happened.
Have they? What are these weirder things that you talk about?
Just weird things tend to happen during the playoffs.
Yes, but that would be too weird.
I don't think there's any such thing as too weird in NHL playoffs. But yeah, I don't think it's likely. Do I still want to hope for it? Sure. I'd like to see him come back in some capacity. But we'll see. It's a big old we'll see.
Yes, we'll see.
And then finally for the NHL, you got Kaliev and Hedel for the New York Rangers are both out for the foreseeable future, end of the season. So that puts a dent in their crazy end of season run. Not a substantial one, but enough.
Yeah, again, they're in, they're out. So right now I believe they are out.
Mm-hmm.
The Rangers are.
Yeah, and Montreal's in.
And in is the Montreal Canadiens. How crazy is that? There's the possibility that it goes down to their last game, which we will be at in Montreal. So it could be extra exciting. So there'll be even extra hatred on us. People throwing stuff, baguettes at us. Baguettes! Kill them with baguettes! Or something like that. Sorry, didn't mean to go all
that's
out.
fine. Yeah, should be very. I feel like always in the East, it gets really interesting at the very end, or maybe that's just last year and now this year. Well, but it seems like in the past couple of years, the Western Conference has been more predictable in terms of like postseason placement versus the East.
Yeah, that last spot is, that's going to be a fun one till the end. And, people always like to say hockey's better when the Blackhawks are relevant, when the Detroit Red Wings are relevant.
Hockey's great when the Montreal Canadiens are relevant.
Hockey is nice when the Montreal Canadiens are relevant and in the playoffs. That's just the way it is. So it'd be good for hockey if they made it. We'll see. That's a weird team that, just whenever anybody thinks anybody's out, all of a sudden they string together 3 and then they're close to in. So yeah. Good stuff.
You got anything in the NHL world?
No, I'm looking forward to seeing some of the races come down to the end. Me and you talked a little bit last night about our viewing tendencies in 4 weeks when we get to close the book on this season. There should be one hell of a party. Anybody who's stuck this out all year and watched most of the games, a big way to go. That's some hell of a commitment, or just insanity. So
I think more insanity.
I'm gonna get started on my watching. As I told you, I'm gonna be all in on the playoffs. I can't spin myself through another thing of watching prospects and saying, oh yeah, it's all going to be better. I'm just going to watch real good hockey. You will be on prospect detail and for the most part Rockford detail. So
just like the regular season.
Yes.
Speaking of prospect detail.
I just bump set spike. Oh, sorry.
All right. Starting off with University of Minnesota Duluth. This was their final weekend. They were knocked out of postseason contention, and I don't believe that they have a bid for the Frozen Four. So Dominic James and Adam Guyon are done. But James had 2 goals this weekend. Guyon was in net for both games this final weekend. You've got Sasha Boisvert with 2 assists this weekend. He'll play Western Michigan University, which is the number 1 seed right now, on Friday. And then we'll do a Frozen Face-Off Championship on Saturday. And that will be against whoever wins out of University of Denver and Arizona State, because they're in the NCHC conference. Let's see. And then you've got NCAA regionals the following weekend. Ryan Green with 1 assist against University of Massachusetts this past weekend. Will play UConn in the Hockey Eastern semifinals on Thursday. And then Frozen Four stuff happens the weekend following, which I'm assuming. I don't really understand. This really hasn't changed the past couple of weeks, my understanding on this, who has a bid and who doesn't, but I sure assume that Boston University does.
Yes, and right before it starts, we'll break it down again. I should be able to get some easier obtainable information of who got a bid and then who got brought into an at-large bid. I would assume, I believe all the tournaments wrap up this weekend, correct? Does that sound about right? And then I think mid next week is when we find out who is in and who is out.
Probably. You had Aiden Thompson with 1 goal and 2 assists this weekend. We'll play Arizona State University on Friday, and then they will play Saturday the winner of University of North Dakota or Western Michigan University if they win on Friday. Providence College is out. They lost their 1 beginning game in the Hockey Eastern Conference this past weekend, so no more Connor Kelly, Tage Harding, and John Mustard. For OHL, as of right now, yes.
So you're talking the game before was Mustard's last stand?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, that's a hot dog place in the city. If anybody understands that. Mustard last stand, try it out. Really good food.
Anyway, for OHL, as of right now, all of our prospects have clinched a playoff spot. So, like Krusty said, he will be delving into the NHL playoffs. I will probably be getting an OHL playoff package because I have no life, and reporting on what they do during the postseason. So for this past weekend, you got 1 goal from Misiak out of Erie Otters, 1 goal and 1 assist for Jack Pridham out of Kitchener Rangers, 1 assist for AJ Spellacy out of Windsor Spitfires. Ferrand, you've got 1 assist from Sudbury Wolves. Merrick Vinegar, you have 3 goals and 1 assist for Brantford. As then you have 1 goal and 1 assist for the Lardass this weekend. It was almost 2. He did score 1, but he was offsides, so it didn't count.
Well, that's a piss poor weekend for the Lardass. That's just 2 points.
I've got some notes. Krusty's had to listen to these notes already. But I really don't think he was paying attention when I was explaining last week, so it'll be like I'm telling him for the first time.
That's a lot of Krusty's world right there. You've just hit upon there, Hockey Princess. Yeah. Every day is a new adventure, and I struggle to stay connected with anybody. Always remember anybody that I'm talking to, make eye contact. I'm probably not listening if we're not.
Fair enough. So I was able to catch the Sudbury Wolves versus Brantford Bulldogs game this weekend because I was trying to watch as many prospects and report like I can. For Alex Ferrand, I really liked his two-way game. Really wasn't flashy. Kid's got decent size. I will say I don't think this was the best game for me to watch him play, just because Sudbury really didn't have a great game against Brantford because Brantford is on such a big hot streak. So I'll be interested to see, maybe watch him during the first round. But I did like his two-way game. Wasn't flashy, seems to have a calmness on the ice, which I think balances out a lot of other personalities that we have, not only on our roster right now, but with Rockford and the prospects as well. For Brantford, Lardass, I just have holy shit written in big letters. The kid's all that.
I get it, Lardass. Holy shit.
Mm-hmm.
That was a real good one.
He has, yes, he can put the puck in the net. Like, that's an obvious thing that, we've talked about. Everybody's reporting now. He has this ability to, slow down time when he has the puck. And he's able to just dictate the pace and kind of everything on the ice. Because when he has puck possession, everybody kind of just goes still, because they're unsure of what he's going to do, and the defense doesn't want to make a wrong move, because whatever they do, he's going to find a way to put the puck in the back of the net. So that was a big thing that I took away from his game was, yes, the kid can score. Yes, the kid's fast. Yes, the kid is fluid and his skating looks good. But it was just the ability to slow everything down, and not slow in the sense of it looks bad, but just dictate the game. Merrick Vinegar was really impressed with his game. Really, I like him. I like his vision. The kid stands in front of the net, very much in the similar of when Tyler Bertuzzi was going on a teeny tiny hot streak, and he was just standing to the side and he was just waiting for the pass, and then it puts the puck right in the net because the goalie's looking the other way. That's what he was doing the entire night, standing right there and just waiting. So I really liked that out of him. Unfortunately, he can't go to Rockford next year. I wish he could, because I think he's outgrown juniors, to be honest. I don't think there's any more situations that Brantford could put him in that's necessarily a huge learning lesson, but I don't think he's necessarily ready for the NHL, especially with the current shit show that it is right now. I think Rockford would be ideally his next step, but unfortunately he can't. So I'm unsure of where he's going to be come next year.
Okay. Again, is that it for prospects, or basically with that situation, that's one of the things being discussed at the GM meetings in Florida, is because of the new ways that somebody could go from the OHL now to college and back and forth. There's a lot of discussion how to unify this moving forward. So it's a big discussion. Nothing that'll get decided at this GM meeting, but it's going to be a huge part of their contract, which they have 1 year left on. They're hoping to maybe get this thing signed, sealed, delivered before the Stanley Cup playoffs. If not, it'll be this. So who knows? There's the possibility of that little hiccup rule that we saw Korchinski. He ended up coming to the Hawks because they figured, he couldn't do anything else in juniors. That might be going away. So we are unsure of that. It's one of the big things to keep an eye on as far as the NHL and the NHLPA negotiations.
Yeah. But really fun game to watch. Like I said, I'll probably watch more playoff hockey for the kids just because somebody's got to report on it. I did tell Krusty earlier that I think out of the kids right now, with the exception of whoever we draft in this upcoming draft class, because we don't know that yet, Jack Pridham and AJ Spellacy, I see everyone else potentially making the jump over. I think Pridham's had a splash of a first year, but he's nowhere near ready to make that NHL jump. I think he will be in the same position like Savoie, Ludwinski, and Hayes were, that once if the rules stay the same, once they're able to make the AHL jump, I think that will be his next jump. And Spellacy, I don't think is ready for the type of game that he plays. I don't think he's necessarily ready to make that jump from OHL to the NHL with that type of game, because yes, he plays a physical game. Yes, he had a great preseason, but playing a physical game in juniors is a lot different than playing a physical game against like the Shen brothers. And there's two guys on the Windsor Spitfires right now that I imagine that are kind of the leading point scorers for the Windsor Spitfires. And I do imagine that they leave at the end of this year, and that is your Baby Protus and your Liam Greentree. Protus is drafted by the Washington Capitals. Greentree is drafted by the Carolina Hurricanes, I believe. I wouldn't be surprised if Greentree gets called, maybe. And I would be surprised if Protus doesn't, because he's been on an absolute tear this year.
All righty.
So that's all I have for prospects.
That's it? Okay. Yeah, and most of them are going to the playoffs, correct?
What do you mean?
So, in some form or another at juniors, they're going to the playoffs.
Every player that is a OHL prospect is going to the postseason. I believe as of right now, the only two prospects that we have currently, University of Minnesota, Duluth, and Providence College are the only guys that are out right now. Everybody else is either still in their postseason competition, or they will be going to the postseason in a couple of weeks.
All righty.
Jumping to Rockford. We have a couple of games. First one, Rockford versus Hartford. Rockford outshot Hartford 17-2 in the first period. Great Korchinski goal. They do seem to gel, or at least they did against Hartford okay, considering all the roster changes and that this is a wasted year. Savvy is back on the third line with Gavin Hayes. This was Akurati's first game since the Blackhawk Utah Hockey Club exchange on the trade deadline. Drew Comesso is an absolute stud. He saw that Spencer Knight came here and said, I'm going to take this personally. And he had a great game. They did lose against Milwaukee on Sunday. But I mean, Milwaukee's number one in the division right now, so it's going to be a tough game anyway. And my biggest concern, and I do have this concern with the Beacon of Hope also getting 2 10-minute misconducts. Kevin Korchinski cannot stay out of the box, and I'm concerned.
What do you mean he can't stay out of the box?
Or no, he can't. The man is constantly in the box.
What's he doing?
Pick something. I don't know exactly, but he's getting penalties left and right.
Well, that usually kind of tells me that it might be something like hooking, holding, grabbing, basically getting beat defensively and then tries to make up for it. Which, I don't know. I have not watched enough of Kevin to make a call either way. I've always had my opinions on Core. He has done nothing to make me think any differently. But again, he's a young baby, so
yeah,
maybe that's still getting used to playing.
Yeah, but that was their big issue against Milwaukee. Senny is out for 2 to 3 weeks, sustained a nasty shoulder injury. So Kevin Lombardi was called up from the Indy Fuel to Rockford. I got real excited for a minute thinking that we were calling up an Indy guy because Savvy was going to get called up. No, Kyle just doesn't want to make me happy. And guys, I'm starting to think that Savvy isn't getting a game at the end of this year.
He might not. Again, he'll be here soon enough. I don't think it's anything to completely worry about.
No, I'm just impatient.
I hear ya. Yes, you are.
That's all I have on Rockford. Not a ton. A win, a loss. I'm excited to hopefully see some of these younger kids, once they get knocked out of OHL playoff contention, they kind of just like chill in the box. It'll be interesting to see who they choose and like kind of who starts with Rockford or is at least like done with juniors for next year. Should be interesting.
Yeah, and as we talked about, we'll try to maybe get to a game or two. I don't know. Is Rockford in a playoff position as of now?
That you would have to look up.
I would have to look up. Okay, I can easily click to NHL standings. Look at me go. I'm doing a great job. Unsure. They're not very good. But I believe the first 4 make it and then like 5 and 6 play a playoff game, don't they?
What I heard is, though, they have a better record than the big league.
Yes, they do. By a lot of percentage points.
Yeah.
So I think they maybe make it into that playoff, whatever, that 3-game series or whatever, which doesn't do much for me either.
No.
They still aren't even 500, which is, again, well, we can cry as much as we want to about a wasted year, but it's a wasted year. What can I say?
It is a wasted year. You got anything else on Rockford?
No, I've really fallen down on the Rockford. As I said, not this year. Maybe next year I'll get it fully behind their playoff push.
Maybe. All right. Well, before we talk about the big league, because I really don't have the desire to, even though we do have some feelings, Kirsty, we have some questions.
Questions?
I know.
That's excellent. Thank you for whoever asked questions, because neither of us really wants to talk about the big club, and it's the same thing. We're beating the same drum.
Yeah.
So what kind of questions? I hope they're fun trivia questions.
No, they're questions about the game.
Oh, no way. Who are we going to call to figure that out?
Christy, first off, we talk about how Artie could be running the first power play unit. Renzel could be running a power play unit in the future. Core was expected to run a power play unit. Why is it that a defenseman is the one that runs the power play unit? And
Wow.
I do have
She's got the whiteboard.
The whiteboard, just in case we need it.
I don't think we need to go too crazy on the whiteboard, but if you want, there's two things with the power play. They call it quarterbacking, running the power play. I've always stated there's two different things. There's a power play quarterback, and then usually every team has a person that the power play goes through, or at least ends up at. If you watch the Washington Capitals, their power play ends up in Ovi's office. Just like Tampa Bay would end up in Stamkos's. Everything goes through McKinnon for Colorado, but their power play quarterback is Cale Makar. Basically, the defenseman is usually always the facilitator, because if you want to break out your whiteboard, he's going to be that last guy up by the blue line. So you could, if you wanted to, do a little X on like the front middle by the blue line. And you can do then another little X. Yep, you can do another little X on the left circle, right around in front of on the side of the circle. So now that other one on the outside of the circle. Oh my God, I might just do this the whole rest of the time, everybody, and just make her continue. All right. So, like for the Blackhawks power play, that second X is basically where the beacon of hope is. Okay? Now, you can also show them where, your Bertuzzi sets up shop right by the net. He's your net front presence right down there. Okay? You have somebody in between Bertuzzi and your defenseman. And they call that, at least the way the Blackhawks run it, the bumper position. There, you sound really smart. You didn't need to know all this, did you? And then you have somebody else.
Who's your bumper, typically?
Who's your bumper? Our bumper is like Tavo. Who else is on our power play?
I don't know. It changes every time.
I know, but we have Artie.
NASCAR?
No, NASCAR's on the second unit. So we have Donato. So you basically would have Donato's usually in the bumper position. Tavo's usually on the other wing, going all over the place. But they call it
here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So as you can see, this almost makes a little like diamond shape with Donato being in the middle. So basically there's a lot of passing going from the top of the diamond, who we're going to call is Party Artie, and he facilitates over to either the Beacon of Hope or to Tavo. So they call him the power play quarterback because he's the main facilitator. He is going to be touching the puck the most. Once they get out into the zone, the puck usually makes it back to him. So that's what they call that area. Everyone's different. Core, when he was in juniors, did a lot of facilitating. There wasn't a ton of shots from the point. Artie has a good knack for getting it through traffic, and he's got a heck of a shot. So that's why they consider a defenseman the quarterback, because usually that last person touches the puck the most. He is the one who's going to receive a pass from the Beacon of Hope, either go back over to Donato, and then they'll continue to try to circle around, but he's going to touch it the most. That's why he's called quarterback. The power play has evolved a little bit. It's still about once you start to spread everybody out, that defenseman needs to have a good shot from the blue line to get in. And he also is going to be the first line of starting up that slingshot entry that we all love. Does that answer everyone's questions? Can I get a thumbs up from all our listeners?
Next question. More of just a general clarification.
Okay.
Kind of in terms of like maybe hitting or like the severity scale in terms of penalty, like a 2 versus a 4 versus a 5 versus a Connor Bedard special 10.
Okay. Would you like to start with anything specific? Crusty Old Guy was a little ready for this. And if you could see on Crusty Old Guy's computer, if we were on like Zoom where I could share my screen.
I don't know. I feel like the most popular
I
one,
have the book. Official Rules 23-24 NHL. 234 pages. That's right. I'm prepared. Yes?
maybe interference. I feel like that's a popular one with the different severity levels.
Interference, just regular interference. We're not talking about goalie interference, are we?
No, that's our next question.
Okay. All right, hold on here. Physical infractions. All right, interference is considered a restraining infraction. This you can ooh and ah people at the bar as you're watching hockey. There are 4 restraining infractions. There's holding, there's hooking, there's interference, and there's tripping. Okay? I'm just noticing most of these are drug references because somebody could be holding. You never want to be tripping. Okay, I'm done. We want to go to interference, right? Okay, it's page 87. Everybody got that? No? Hold on. All right. Let's see. How come I'm on elbowing? Hold on. I'm getting there. I didn't think you'd be going with interference to start off with. But I'm so glad you are. All right. Interference. It's a strict standard of acts of interference must be adhered to in all areas of the rink. Body position shall be determined as the player skating in front or beside the opponent. Okay? Basically, the penalty is the action of a player who does not have body position, but instead uses illegal means, hooking with the stick, holding up with the hands, impeding an opponent's possession of the puck or their ability to go get said puck. Okay? One of the big ones in interference is like a pick play. You're not allowed to get into a defensive player's positioning. It cannot be deemed intentional. Okay? Does that help? Did you want to know the difference between a major and a minor?
Yes.
You're going to love this about hockey. All right.
There isn't one.
Well, there always is. And I think if we go through most of these, we're going to see the same thing. A minor penalty for interference shall be imposed, and it gives you a list of like 10 different things. Okay? A major penalty is at the referee's discretion. May assess a major penalty based on the degree of violence to a player guilty of interfering with an opponent. So this is one of the things that you always love about your hockey, as it's open to interpretation by said referee. Referee, as far as these infractions get to choose if they want to bump it up to a 4. Okay. Now I take it you want to know the next level. Oh, you do, don't you? Are you on the edge of your seat? This is where I take a quick pause and have a Diet Coke and let the audience hunger for it. See, this isn't my first rodeo. Now you guys are really wanting it. Okay, hold on, I'll get back. Okay, the only thing after that is you can go 2-4 or game misconduct penalty. A major penalty is imposed under the rule for an infraction resulting in injury of an opponent. A game misconduct shall be imposed. And we all know what a game match penalty is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for your listeners who don't, yep, that means you're gone. And you have to have some form of hearing with the NHL. They might just say, don't do that again. You were gone for a game. That's all we really need to. That's the deal as far as interference. Now, do you want to go over a couple more?
Sure.
All right, let's crusty old guy. He's got all this stuff up.
Maybe, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the biggest ones are like interference or like roughing or instigate or like things. The more physical, I feel, are the more open to interpretation and maybe don't have an accurate blueprint on what it actually is.
Well, I think we could go through a couple more, and let's take you pick. Do you want charging, boarding, fighting, elbowing? Which one you want me to do?
Let's do boarding.
Okay, boarding. Let's see. 73. Enter. I never get to the right page because this is silly. Hold on, almost there. Okay, a mining boarding. Again, even the penalty, the minor penalty, at his discretion. They may assess a minor penalty based on the degree of violence of the impact with the boards to a player guilty of boarding an opponent. Then you can have the major penalty if they think it's even more gruesome, and then your match penalty.
What would you say are like the different, like the degrees of violence? Is that kind of just like if you've got a chicken wing leaning into it, like?
I believe the way the NHL has gone about its business lately, and this is one of the drawbacks of the game, and we definitely don't want this turning into soccer. But I think the refs look at the degree of violence as to the fact is somebody still laying on the ground, which is something we don't want to do. But yet there's a call for, hey, my guy's down. And the problem being, all of a sudden the guy's down and he looks like he's dead. But yet, after the TV timeout, he's out there on the power play. So it depends. Officials are never going to get a complete good sight on the whole play. There's one of them out there who's taking care of most of that end, and then a back judge way in the back. They can't see the whole ice. So it just, as you've always talked about, they need to be held accountable. There's so much that at one point will be okay, and the next point it's not okay. But as far as determining between a 2 and a 4, basically they'll look at the violence of the hit I mean, as you're able to tell from games, your listeners are able to tell if you're at a game or even watching on TV, you'll have those moments where you're like, that's a violent hit. So first thing they're going to think about is if it's an illegal violent hit, is thinking about 4.
And I think, yes, I'm always on the train of refs need to be held accountable for their actions, but I understand that there's a lot of different factors to penalties, and it's a very fast game, but a lot of these penalties are depending on the degree of violence. Okay, what are you looking for in that? And I feel like that is a thing, like even if it's a list, I'm fine with that, but it feels like there's just still a significant amount of gray area in terms of like in the book but we know that you're obviously looking for certain things with these degrees of violence. Every degree of violence is going to have, different levels, but it's like, what is that? How do you determine that?
There is no set way. Again, as we discuss it, we're now, what are we talking about? Boarding?
Mm-hmm.
That first boarding call, 2 minutes. I don't know what the, maybe boarding's like that. I don't know what the hand signal is. Oh, I should be fired. But just the first 2 minute call is at the referee's discretion. So then the next one, and all it says for the next one is the degree of violence. Okay? And you're asking, well, what is that? Again, it's at their discretion. So I know for a fact whether they want to admit it or not, it is how long that guy lays on the ice or if it was just a violent hit. So those are the two. It's a 2 and a 4. Now they can go and give somebody 10. And that basically, a match penalty and a match game misconduct penalty, now they start talking about intent. That's like for a boarding call or for an elbowing call. An elbowing call will be that guy loads up the elbow and cocks her up. It's not that he's turning. He's coming with intent to take his head off. Now, he's going to say he only wanted to come up and hit him in the chest with the elbow. But you can't do that either. Okay? You can't cock and load the elbow. Once there's that motion and they make the decision, then that becomes a match. And that could be also, as far as elbowing is concerned, what you would then move it up to a 4. So that's basically it. There's the violence of the hit, and there's the attempt to get in somebody's head about the intent. Sometimes it's easy to do in hockey. You can see somebody making a beeline, and you know their intent. Back when we had JR on here, that was all legal. So as I told him my story of watching him hit somebody once, you could see him have intent. He circled around and went full length of the ice to go deck this guy. That is now a taboo. Can't do that in the game. Where before, keep your head up at all times. You're responsible for not getting hit. Okay? Look, see somebody coming, get out of the way. With the game changing so much, the onus has now been put on the hitter to be more cautious. And with that, every player now wants to take it to the next step and use it to his advantage. The biggest thing that I've always noticed about this is the boarding call. Because like back when Roenick played, you never turned your back to a player. and went like 2 feet in front of the boards. Where if you watch Jack Hughes, the beacon of hope, all of these guys do that now. They know full well you can't load up and hit him. So it works out to be a very good play. But then occasionally somebody hits him too hard and he goes into the boards. And somebody who's watched the game as much as I have, I always go, that's on the player. He's putting himself in harm's way. That's why there's always a discussion of who's responsible.
I believe Ryan Lindgren did that the last time the Blackhawks played the Avs to Connor specifically too.
Yes, and your object checking is legal in this game, so you're allowed to check. It's hard for you always to pull up, and when that guy does that quick turn, and then all of a sudden gives you his back, when you're first making your moves towards him, he's not giving you your back, but he turns his back as you're proceeding through it. Somebody as crusty and old as me thinks that's the player's responsibility. You'll hear Eddie O say that a lot. Whereas if there's somebody like Jack Hughes, I like Jack's game, and he's nifty just like the beacon of hope. They see it as, no, the new rules are you've got to watch yourself. So I'm going to use this to my advantage. And if I take a real bad hit, I'm going to end up taking a really bad hit. But I'm going to use it. This is an advantage for the player. They want more goals. This is just the way it is. So I don't know if that made sense to anyone. No?
Sure.
Yes? Yeah, sure it did.
You talk about hitting.
I love hitting.
Intentional, non-intentional. We want to kind of go over what's a clean hit and what's not a clean hit.
Oh, good grief. Hold on. This one is the one that I wish I had a cigar. Basically a clean hit is you can't hit the head anymore. You can't undercut somebody from the way. So it's just getting a good hit in the middle area. You can't make it 3 or 4 strides going after them. You have to give a player the ability to avoid. Where before, if they're receiving a pass, you could just light them up. Now, if they're in that position and they're about to receive the pass and you're here, you as the defensive player has to let up. You need to let him receive the pass and get his head up. If you do not, I guarantee it's at least a 4-minute penalty. With the game becoming so fast and the red line taken out of, that was their next move because you had so much open space in the middle. But people would just lick their chops and, oh my God, you could devastate people because they're just trying to receive a pass. They have to keep their eyes on the puck at that point in time. So that's been taken out. That is the player's responsibility. So if the player has his head down awaiting a pass, he's off limits for the most part, unless you're right next to him and you can just give him a little push. That's about it. Is everybody knows we can't leave our feet if you're hitting somebody. Everything else is basically fair game. And, we'll go over this with your listeners in 4 weeks. Unfortunately, the rules changed a little bit in 4 weeks. Crusty old guy really likes it. Everybody gets a little bit more violent and things get nastier, and it's what I like to see. And there's more newer fans who don't like to see it as much. But we could talk about that in another time. But basically, you can't just railroad somebody anymore. They have to, and again, if their back is to you, you can't completely railroad them. What they even teach, you'll see what a lot almost seems like hooking or holding somebody. Like when a defenseman gets the puck, you're allowed to skate into them, and then you kind of hold them up so they don't take the complete brunt of your hit. They're even teaching that, and then you just got to get the arm out. You can't just sit there and bear hug him then. But that's all part of it as far as checking. It's just, if it seems real nasty, you probably shouldn't be doing it. But there's people on teams that's all part of their job. And part of their job is to push boundaries. This is a game of intimidation. Even in the regular season it is. So, it's Stripe's job to not let that get too out of hand, which is difficult. Did that kind of go over hitting a little bit?
No, that definitely makes sense. Our final question for the week. We still have more, but we're gonna talk about it next. We're gonna save some questions for next week when we probably don't want to talk about the rest of this homestand. Krusty, I know you've been waiting for this question.
Oh God.
But we had to bring it up because our friends over in Anaheim asked what this is. We've talked about this before, and we'll talk about this again because, no one knows what this means. Krusty, what is goaltender interference?
I don't know what to tell you on that. There are people that have been.
First, I know, I am on the refs being held accountable for their own actions, and I understand it's a fast game and there's only a couple of guys on the ice to make these calls. But if no one seems to understand this rule, how is this not an issue if no one knows what this rule is?
Well,
everyone's confused.
Well, everyone's confused. I will give you that. But we're going to go to the rule. Let's see if we can't find the rule. We got too many men on the ice. Unsportsmanlike conduct. I'm trying to find it. Hold on. Give me another second. I'm still working on it. You got to continue to talk. Basically, I will tell you that, yes, people that have been following this game a lot more than me and are a shit ton more involved say the same exact thing. It seems to change every day. You'll notice in World Juniors, you have any part of your skate in that blue paint, it's no goal. That's considered interfering, and that's that. So,
which I do appreciate that it is that cut and dry, and
yes, but it just would not work in our game at the NHL level. Basically because there is so much physical contact in front of the net that the first thing I am going to do, since now I have the ability to push somebody into the blue paint, I'm going to push everybody into the blue paint. Because if they score, it's no goal. That's how hardline that rule is. So, I mean, the problem being with changing any kind of infractions is the first thing any good hockey player does, any good hockey coach deals with, is they go, all right, how do I beat the system? And that's the first thing you do. All right, we have found. It is Rule 69.1. The rule is based on the premise. That should tell you everything you need to know right there. That an attacking player's position, whether inside or outside the crease, should not, by itself, determine whether a goal should be allowed or disallowed. In other words, goals scored while attacking players are standing in the crease may, in appropriate circumstances, be allowed. Okay? For the purpose of this rule, contact, whether incidental or otherwise, shall mean any contact that is made between or among a goalkeeper and attacking players, whether by means of stick or any body part. Okay, now the problem with this whole thing is there's a whole page on 69.1. Then we go to 69.2, which is when it's called a penalty. Then we have 69.3, which talks about contact inside the goal crease. If there's contact inside the goal crease and a goal is scored, the goal will be disallowed. If the goalkeeper, in the act of embellishing his position within his goal crease, establishing his position within the goal crease, initiates contact with an attacking player who is in the goal crease, and this result is an impairment of the goalkeeper's ability to defend the goal, and a goal is scored, the goal will be disallowed. So right with that tells me if I go push somebody who's in my crease and they score a goal, it's still contact and shouldn't be scored, right? There's no way they let that goal. I mean, they're going to call it a good goal. We have more for contact outside the goal crease. Let's see. Let's go back to inside the crease. If, after any contact by a goalkeeper who is attempting to establish position in the goal, the opposing player does not immediately vacate his current position in the goal crease, and a goal is scored, the goal will be disallowed. If an attacking player establishes a significant position within the goal crease so as to obstruct the goalkeeper's vision and impair his ability to defend his goal, and a goal is scored, the goal will be disallowed. For the purpose of a player establishes significant position within the crease when, if the referee's judgment, his body or a subsequent portion thereof, see, I know for a fact that if somebody is in the goal crease and they don't touch the goalkeeper, but they block his vision, that goal is going to count every single time. And yet there's a rule telling me if they're in his vision and they're in the crease, it shouldn't count. So actually what it is, I don't know. Basically any form of contact inside that crease, it should be disallowed. But we're in a time right now where we want goals to be allowed. As far as you wonderful people in Anaheim, we're all as frustrated and crazy about it as you. I'm reading about it and getting more and more delusional by the second. It's a constant walking contradiction, but if you read through most of it, it basically states any kind of contact that shouldn't count. And we all know that's not the way it goes. I hear all the announcers constantly say the ability to play the puck. Did it infringe on his ability to play the puck? Again, that now is all judgment, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I can't help you, Anaheim. I know we've gotten screwed on it many times this year. It's a difficult one for any coach to decide he wants to challenge because nobody is really sure. Again, they can't make it clear cut just because come playoff time and this game, we like the violence in front of the net. So it just comes with the territory. And then come playoff time, it's this whole mantra of even the goaltenders got to battle. Everybody's got to battle. Why? Because that's what crusty old guy wants to see. And, you need to appease crusty old guy. So I am sure I have helped no one. I did a little extra reading. I'm sure everybody's glad that I can still read at, what is a 5th grade level. But I don't know. Any announcer that you listen to will say the same thing. I've heard Troy go over and over on it. He goes, I don't know. Anytime I guess at this stuff, I'm wrong. And, that's Troy Murray, who's been broadcasting for 25 years and played the game for 15. If he don't know, crusty old guy definitely don't know.
Well, that's all the questions that we're going to do this week. We're going to do our other ones next week.
All right.
A couple more.
Okay. Are we going to talk about the Big League Club?
Do you want to? Do you really want to?
I do not. I do want to say, I don't know what happened to the crowd last night, but that was the most booing I've heard at a game this year. That's the most booing that I've heard since the Beacon of Hope has been here. I liked it. I prefer not to boo. I don't, just because I respect everybody playing too much. But I'm for everybody else doing it, in case you were wondering. Hopefully management is hearing this and saying we want a better product. I don't know if everybody, was told Seth Jones is left and this team was all of a sudden going to be good. I don't know what they were thinking they were getting, but
it's like Seth Jones wasn't the problem.
No, their problem is so many layers. But wanted to give a shout out to the crowd because I really thought the crowd was into it for the first period. The team was into it. We were into it.
The team was into it for the first period.
Yeah, but that's the loudest I've heard of disapproval this year. That's for sure. So we'll see if that continues. That's all I wanted to talk about. As far as the games, we'll see what next week brings. Crusty old guy is telling himself he's going to take Thursday off completely, and I'm not going to watch it all. We'll see if I'm able to do that.
And I'll be there Thursday because apparently I hate myself for forcing myself to watch this shit at the end of the year. And on that note, just as a reminder, make sure to hit that like and subscribe on either Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube, however you watch or listen to us ramble on a weekly basis. Thank you to everyone who sent in questions. If you have additional questions.
Yes, thank you. This is much better that we get to talk like this stuff, especially if the last 4 weeks are going to be bad. I'd like questions, and preferably some trivia questions and some rock and roll questions.
There you go. If you guys have any questions, please send us questions. If you want Krusty to read more things out of the rule book and explain more things, please.
That really nobody understood. Yeah.
Hey, but it was less depressing than what
True story.
The last couple of weeks. Please wait for the whistle if you're going to a game this season. And if you are going to a game this season, highly recommend Su Taqueria El Rey del Taco over on Ogden, just a couple of blocks away from the United Center. Excellent food, excellent folks. That is all. And we will talk at you guys next week.